Humans are fascinating and often unpredictable. Every glance, word, or gesture can reveal more than we realize. In this script, we'll uncover 100 surprising facts about human behavior, little insights that can change the way you see yourself and everyone around you. Get ready to notice the hidden patterns that drive our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Fact 1. People judge you in the first 3 seconds. You ever walk into a room and feel like the air shifts just a little? Not in a dramatic way, but in that tiny, almost invisible moment when someone looks at you, before you've even said a word. That's the funny thing about people. They start forming an opinion the moment your presence enters their world, and most of the time it's silent, quick, automatic. It's not personal, it's just how the mind works. We look at someone's posture, their expression, the way they stand, even the energy they carry. And inside that split second, something clicks. Friendly, confident, maybe stressed. Of course, none of these impressions are fully accurate, but they shape the conversation before it even starts. Imagine meeting someone who walks in with a warm smile and relaxed shoulders. You feel more at ease around them, right? Now imagine someone who looks tense or guarded. You might pull back a little, even if they're the kindest person you'll ever meet. The mind acts fast, long before real information arrives. And here's the part we don't always admit. We do the same thing, every day, without thinking. We scan faces on the street, co-workers in the hallway, strangers in a cafe. It's not cold, it's instinct. The mind is constantly checking. Safe, familiar, comfortable. It's a survival habit dressed up as social behavior. The good news? Those first 3 seconds aren't the whole story. They just set the stage. Once people start talking, laughing, or relaxing, everything shifts. First impressions may decide the opening scene, but the rest of the story is still yours to shape. Funny how something so quick can matter so much, yet still be so easy to change over time. People may judge fast, but they also adjust fast. That's the part we forget. And honestly, it makes every new meeting a bit more interesting, like watching someone rewrite a story they didn't even know they were telling. Fact 2. The brain loves patterns more than truth. If you've ever tried to make sense of something confusing, you've probably felt that urge to connect the dots, even when the dots didn't want to connect. That's the mind at work, doing what it loves most, building patterns. Sometimes those patterns are helpful, sometimes they're, well, a little too creative. The mind doesn't like loose ends. It tries to wrap things together in neat little boxes. When something feels unclear, uncertain, or incomplete, the mind steps in and says, "All right, let me fix that," even when the fix isn't the whole truth. Think about when you hear half a conversation. Your mind instantly fills in the missing pieces, or when someone gives you a short reply and you start guessing what they meant. The guesses might be wrong, but your mind feels calmer with a pattern than with a blank space. This is why people sometimes misunderstand each other, because the mind creates a quick storyline just to feel settled. It's not trying to fool you. It's trying to protect you from uncertainty. It prefers something that feels right over something that might be right, and this habit shapes how we see others. A tiny detail becomes a whole assumption. A single expression becomes a mood. A short silence becomes a message. Suddenly, you're reacting to a pattern your mind created, not the actual situation in front of you. But here's the beautiful part. Once you notice this habit, you start questioning it. You pause before jumping to conclusions. You give people a little more room to be human instead of fitting them into fast-made mental boxes. And that small pause, just a breath, changes the way you understand the world. The mind may love patterns more than truth, but you get to decide which patterns you keep. And there's something empowering about choosing to look twice instead of assuming once. Fact 3. Most decisions are made subconsciously. You ever make a choice and later wonder, why did I even pick that? Maybe it was a snack, a route you walked, or a comment you made without thinking. It feels random, but it isn't. Most of your decisions happen in a quiet part of the mind that doesn't announce itself. It just nudges you forward. It's like having a backstage team running the show. They pull the strings, adjust the lights, change the scenery, all while you're standing in the spotlight thinking you're steering everything. But the truth is, much of your daily life is guided by habits, instincts, and old experiences working silently in the background. Think about reaching for your phone when you're bored. You don't plan it. You don't say, "Let me open this app for entertainment." Your mind leaps there automatically because it has learned the pattern. Same with choosing a familiar seat, trusting a familiar voice, or hesitating around something new. These tiny pulls aren't random, they're rooted in memory, comfort, and countless invisible calculations. None of this means you're not in control. It simply means you have a whole internal system working to keep life smooth. The subconscious tries to save your energy. It handles routine decisions so your conscious mind can focus on things that matter more. And sometimes, that deeper part of you knows what you need before you do. You walk away from someone who drains you without explaining why. You feel drawn to a place, a person, a moment, and only later understand the reason. The subconscious catches details your awareness skips. What's fascinating is that once you understand this, you start noticing the small signals, the little pulls, the quiet instincts. You realize your mind isn't just a spotlight, it's an entire theatre, with layers you're only beginning to explore. And honestly, there's something comforting about the idea that part of you is always looking out for you, even when you're not paying attention. Fact 4. People mirror you without realizing it. Have you ever noticed that when someone laughs, you start laughing too, even if you didn't catch the joke? Or when a friend leans in during a conversation, you find yourself leaning in without thinking. That's mirroring, and people do it constantly without realizing they're doing anything at all. It's like the mind is quietly saying, I'm with you. I get you. When two people feel even a little bit connected, their movements start syncing. A gesture here, a head tilt there, a matching tone, a shared rhythm. It's subtle, but it's powerful, almost like a social dance happening beneath the surface. When someone mirrors you, it's usually a sign they feel comfortable. They're not trying to impress you, they're simply falling into your pace, and it's fascinating how natural it is. You take a sip of water, they do the same. You cross your legs, they adjust theirs. You laugh softly, they match the tone. But it can work the other way too. When something feels off between people, the mirroring breaks. Movements fall out of sync. One person leans in while the other leans back. It's the body's way of saying, we're not quite aligned yet. Once you become aware of mirroring, you start seeing it everywhere. In couples who walk in harmony, in friends who match expressions, even in strangers having a surprisingly smooth conversation. And sometimes, you can gently encourage connection by mirroring someone's calmness, not in a forced way, but in a natural, respectful one. It reminds you that people aren't separate islands. We influence each other constantly, even in the smallest moments, and that invisible dance says a lot more than words ever do. Funny how the body speaks long before the mouth does, and often it says exactly what the heart feels. Fact 5. Your tone matters more than your words. You know those moments when someone says something simple, but the way they say it makes you feel everything at once. Maybe the words were harmless, but the tone carried a sharp edge. Or maybe the words were ordinary, but the voice behind them felt warm and safe. Tone shapes meaning more than letters ever can. It's interesting how people hear emotion faster than they hear information. The mind reacts to tone instantly, long before it sorts out the exact words. A gentle, hey, can we talk? Feels completely different from a tense one. Same sentence, two completely different worlds. And tone doesn't just reveal emotion, it guides it. A calming tone can soften a difficult conversation. A rushed tone can create pressure where there doesn't need to be any. A quiet, steady voice can make someone feel understood even when you're not saying much at all. Think about the last time someone asked, "Are you okay?" If the tone was caring, you probably opened up. If it was annoyed, you probably shut down. The question was identical, but the feeling wasn't. The interesting part is that tone reflects more than mood. It reveals intention. If you're patient, it shows. If you're distracted, that shows too. People read tone like a map. They follow it to understand where the conversation is headed. Once you realize how powerful tone is, you start paying closer attention. Not just to others, but to yourself. You notice when your voice tightens. You notice when it softens. You notice how people respond. And slowly you gain the ability to communicate not just with words, but with feeling. Because in the end, tone is the bridge. It carries emotion from one person to another. And sometimes, that gentle bridge does more work than the message itself. Each conversation becomes a little clearer when you remember that people listen with their hearts first, and their ears second. Fact 6. Confidence is often a performance, not a feeling. Have you ever met someone who seemed effortlessly confident, like they had it all together? Chances are what you saw wasn't a feeling. They were performing it. Confidence, as it turns out, isn't always an internal state. Sometimes it's a set of actions, gestures, and even a tone that convinces both the world and ourselves that we're in control. Think about it. Standing tall, making eye contact, speaking steadily. These are behaviours anyone can adopt even on days they feel insecure. And the fascinating part? Acting confident often creates a feedback loop. The more you perform it, the more your mind starts believing it. It's like tricking yourself into strength, and slowly that performance turns into genuine feeling. The tricky side is when people assume confidence is only about feeling fearless. The truth is, most people are navigating nerves, doubts, and self-criticism behind the scenes. That polished exterior? It's practice, awareness, and timing. Some days it clicks, some days it falters, and that's human. Confidence is also contagious. When someone carries themselves with calm assurance, it makes others feel safer and more willing to listen. That's why leaders, teachers, or even friends who act confident, even without fully feeling it, tend to draw people in. It's a gentle social magnetism, powered by performance and consistency. Next time you notice someone radiating confidence, remember, what looks effortless often started as a conscious choice. And the more you allow yourself to perform confidence, the easier it is for that feeling to grow. It's a reminder that bravery isn't always about feeling fearless, it's about moving forward anyway. Fact 7. People remember how you made them feel, not what you said. Think back to a conversation that stuck with you. Chances are it wasn't the words that lingered, it was the feeling. That moment when someone made you laugh, reassured you, or even made you uncomfortable. That emotional imprint lasts far longer than sentences or facts. It's fascinating. The mind records experiences like an emotional map rather than a transcript. A warm hug, a kind smile, a supportive tone. These stick. Arguments, criticism, or coldness also stay, often shaping your memory of a person more than anything they said. That's why customer service, friendships, and even brief encounters hinge more on emotional resonance than information. Even small gestures carry weight. Offering a genuine compliment or simply listening attentively can outshine elaborate explanations. Conversely, words said without warmth can feel hollow, no matter how correct they are. People might forget the details, but the emotional echo remains. Understanding this can change how you approach interactions. Focus less on impressing others with perfect wording, and more on making them feel understood, safe, or valued. That emotional footprint is what people carry away, and it's more powerful than anything you can memorize. At the end of the day, feelings are the silent storytellers of our lives. Words fade, but emotion lingers, and sometimes that's all that really matters. Fact 8. Microexpressions. Reveal hidden emotions. Have you ever noticed a flash of something on someone's face? A fleeting smile? A slight frown that disappears almost immediately? Those tiny, often unconscious expressions are called microexpressions, and they're like cracks in the armor of human behavior. They reveal what people feel, even when they're trying not to show it. Microexpressions last less than a second, but they carry enormous insight. A twitch of the lips, a blink, a raised brow. These tiny movements can signal doubt, surprise, irritation, or excitement before someone even speaks. It's almost like your body leaks secrets your mind is still keeping. Think of it like reading the weather of a conversation. Someone may say they're fine, but a quick tightening around the eyes could suggest anxiety. Someone might nod enthusiastically, yet a micro-expression of tension might hint at hesitation. Learning to notice these subtle cues can change the way you interact and respond. The fascinating thing is that everyone does this, whether they know it or not. And it's not about catching someone in a lie, it's about understanding the deeper currents of human emotion. These tiny cues often align with what people really feel, which is why they're so useful in reading social situations. Next time you're in a conversation, pay attention, not just to words, but to the fleeting expressions that cross the face. Those brief, almost invisible gestures tell a story that words alone often cannot. And noticing them makes the human experience richer, more nuanced, and far more connected. Fact 9. Stress makes people misread social cues. Have you ever tried talking to someone who seemed distracted or on edge, only to feel like they misunderstood everything you said? Stress has a funny way of clouding perception. When people are anxious, tired, or overwhelmed, their brain filters information differently, and social cues can get lost in translation. Under stress, subtle signals, like a raised eyebrow, a soft laugh, or a hesitant pause, can be misinterpreted. A friendly comment might feel critical. A casual glance might feel judgmental. It's not personal, it's biology. Stress makes the mind hyper-alert, focusing on potential threats, and often ignoring context or nuance. Interestingly, stress doesn't just affect the stressed person, it can ripple outward. When someone misreads a tone or gesture, others adjust in response, sometimes creating a cycle of tension or misunderstanding. Small misunderstandings can escalate quickly if nobody steps back to slow down and clarify. The key is awareness. Noticing your own stress level and the stress of others helps prevent unnecessary conflict. Pausing before reacting, asking simple questions, or giving a moment of space can make all the difference. And recognizing that misreads are often unintentional fosters patience and empathy. Even in the middle of chaos, understanding the effect of stress on perception allows smoother communication. It's a reminder that sometimes people aren't being difficult, they're just human, navigating their own internal storm. Fact 10. People trust faces that look familiar. Ever noticed how a familiar face immediately feels safer? It doesn't even matter if you've met the person before. The brain is wired to respond positively to faces it recognizes, even faintly, because familiarity signals safety and predictability. That's why we tend to gravitate toward people who resemble friends, family, or people we've seen before. The brain takes a split-second shortcut. I know you. You seem safe. It's subconscious, automatic, and surprisingly powerful. Familiarity also affects first impressions. A slight resemblance, a familiar expression, or even a voice that reminds us of someone we like can create instant trust. This doesn't guarantee honesty or kindness. It just sets the stage for openness. This phenomenon explains why advertisers, leaders, and even storytellers often use familiar images or patterns. It's comforting, approachable, and persuasive. And in everyday life, noticing that sense of familiarity can help you understand why you click with certain people quickly, or feel wary around others without a clear reason. It's amazing how the mind works quietly in the background, shaping connections before we consciously decide. And once you notice it, you start seeing subtle patterns in how people interact, how familiarity, trust, and recognition dance together in human behavior. Familiarity isn't everything, but it's often enough to open the door, and sometimes the rest of the story depends on what happens after that door swings wide. Fact 11. Memories change. Every time you recall them. Have you ever thought you remembered something clearly only to realize later that your memory was a little off? That's because memories aren't static. Every time you recall an event, your brain rebuilds it. It's like opening an old file and saving it again with tiny edits, sometimes intentional, sometimes not. Even small details can shift. A conversation you remember might gain words you didn't say. An emotion might feel stronger or weaker than it actually was. The mind does this for a reason. It fills gaps, smooths inconsistencies, and makes the memory feel coherent. In a way, your brain prioritizes storytelling over strict accuracy. This is why eyewitness accounts can differ so dramatically. Two people witness the same event, but each recall is influenced by focus, mood, and subsequent experiences. Every retelling subtly reshapes the memory, and even personal stories we tell ourselves, like a moment of pride or embarrassment, shift each time we revisit them. But here's the fascinating part. This isn't a flaw, it's a feature. Our memories evolve to help us make sense of the past, learn lessons, and integrate experiences into our identity. The brain tweaks the story to fit the you of today. It's humbling, though, to realize that even our clearest memories are in some ways works of art, always slightly rewoven. And maybe that's why nostalgia feels both real and a little magical. The mind shapes what we remember into something meaningful, not just factual. Fact 12. People are more honest when they're tired. Ever noticed that late-night conversations often get unusually real? People tend to lower their defenses when they're tired, revealing thoughts they might otherwise hide. It's not that they intend to overshare, It's just that the brain's filter relaxes when energy runs low. Being alert requires effort. When we're rested, our mind carefully monitors what we say, what we reveal, and how we appear. But exhaustion loosens that grip. People slip into honesty simply because they don't have the mental energy to maintain pretense. That's why some of the most sincere moments happen during late-night chats, after a long day, or when someone is just too tired to care. A smile, a confession, or even a subtle admission can feel more authentic simply because the mask isn't fully in place. It's a reminder that context shapes behavior. People aren't necessarily lying when they appear guarded. They're conserving energy, protecting themselves, or maintaining social norms. But when those systems pause, truth slips through. So next time a friend suddenly shares something candid late at night, know that their honesty comes from the quiet lift of their internal filter, and that fleeting, revealing honesty is often closer to their real thoughts than anything they say while fully alert. Fact 13. Flattery works, even when people know it's fake. We like to think we're immune to flattery, but the truth is, even when we recognize it, it has an effect. Compliments, praise, or kind words trigger a response in the brain. They make us feel noticed, acknowledged, and surprisingly, a little more agreeable. It doesn't need to be deep or clever. Even simple phrases like, "That's a great idea," or "You handled that well" work. The brain responds to social validation, and acknowledgement feels rewarding, even when we suspect it's exaggerated. This is why advertising, politics, and even casual conversations lean on flattery. People enjoy feeling valued, and subtly, even fake praise can open doors for connection or cooperation. It's less about trickery and more about how humans are wired to respond to positive attention. Of course, the effect is strongest when it feels personal, not generic. A genuine tone or a specific compliment resonates more than a blanket statement, and it's a delicate balance. Overdo it, and people notice. But when done thoughtfully, it nudges behavior subtly. Flattery is a fascinating reminder that humans crave acknowledgement. It's a small, natural way to influence interactions, even when everyone knows the compliment might be strategic. Fact 14. The brain believes negative information faster. Ever notice how one harsh comment sticks longer than a dozen compliments? The brain is wired to pay more attention to negative information because it often signals threat. This goes back to survival instincts. Noticing danger quickly meant staying alive. It's not just about fear, it's about priority. Bad news, criticism, or warning signs trigger faster reactions than neutral or positive information. That's why workplace criticism lingers in your mind, while praise slips away almost unnoticed. This tendency affects perception, memory, and decision-making. People might overreact to small negative cues or assume the worst in ambiguous situations. And it's not conscious, it's automatic. The mind flags potential risks before it evaluates context. The good news is awareness. Knowing that the brain emphasizes negative signals allows you to pause, question assumptions, and focus on balance. Compliments matter too. They just need to be noticed and internalized consciously to counteract the bias. Understanding this tendency explains a lot about human behavior. We're not pessimistic by choice. We're wired to react to threat first. Once you recognize it, you can better navigate interactions, emotions, and even media consumption. Fact 15. People copy the emotions they see. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the energy shift? Someone smiles and suddenly you feel lighter. Someone frowns and your mood dips. Humans naturally mimic the emotions of those around them, often without realizing it. This isn't just empathy, it's social wiring. Mirror neurons in the brain help us pick up on subtle cues, facial expressions, gestures, tone, and translate them into similar feelings. It's why laughter spreads, tension spreads, and excitement spreads almost instantly. Even small interactions matter. A cheerful coworker can lift the mood of an entire team. A calm friend can diffuse anxiety. And conversely, negativity spreads just as quickly, quietly influencing perception and behavior. It's also why emotional awareness is powerful. By consciously managing your own emotions, you can affect others without saying a word. Your presence alone can signal safety, enthusiasm, or calm. Humans are emotional mirrors, constantly reflecting and absorbing feelings. And realizing this gives you a subtle superpower, the ability to shape the energy around you, whether you're leading a conversation, comforting someone, or simply walking into a room. The emotions we share ripple outward, reminding us that feelings are rarely private. They're contagious, visible threads connecting us all. Fact 16. Eye contact increases persuasion. Have you ever noticed how some people just seem to get their way in conversations almost effortlessly? A big part of it isn't what they say, it's how they look at you. Eye contact is powerful. It draws attention, signals confidence, and subtly convinces the other person that you're trustworthy and engaged. It's fascinating because the effect is mostly subconscious. When someone meets your gaze steadily but naturally, your mind interprets it as honesty and interest. It's why public speakers, leaders, and negotiators spend so much time perfecting how they connect with the eyes of their audience. But it's not about staring aggressively or making the other person uncomfortable. It's about rhythm, awareness, and warmth. Brief breaks, nods, and shifts in attention actually enhance the effect, making the gaze feel genuine rather than robotic. Even in casual conversation, eye contact creates subtle influence. People are more likely to agree, cooperate, or share information when they feel seen. And that doesn't mean manipulation, it's human connection in action. Next time you want to make a point or genuinely connect, remember the eyes do a lot of the talking. A steady, confident gaze can persuade more than perfect words ever could, quietly shaping the interaction in ways most people don't even notice. Fact 17. People believe. Confident liars over nervous truth-tellers. It's strange but true. Confidence often outweighs honesty in first impressions. Someone who speaks smoothly, maintains posture, and projects certainty is far more convincing than someone who stumbles over words, even if they're telling the truth. The brain is wired to equate confidence with reliability. When someone appears self-assured, your mind assumes they know what they're talking about. Nervous behaviors, fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, hesitations, can trigger doubt, even when the person is completely truthful. This is why storytelling, presentations, and even debates often favor style as much as substance. It's not just charm, it's the psychology of perception. People aren't intentionally deceptive, they're responding to the cues of confidence. Awareness is key. Knowing that confidence can override truth helps you question first impressions. Nervousness doesn't always signal dishonesty, and smooth delivery doesn't guarantee it. Observing behavior in context rather than reacting solely to confidence makes interactions clearer and fairer. Ultimately, this fact reminds us that perception is powerful. Humans often respond to presentation first and content second, and recognizing that gives you a subtle edge in both giving and receiving information. Fact 18. Your mood affects what you notice. Ever walked into a room feeling happy and noticed all the bright, positive details? Or entered stressed or frustrated and suddenly all the small annoyances seem magnified? Your mood acts like a filter, shaping what your brain highlights and what it ignores. When you're cheerful, your brain is primed to notice opportunities, smiles, and connections. When you're tense, it zeroes in on threats, mistakes, and potential problems. This bias happens automatically without conscious effort. It explains why two people can experience the same event completely differently. Your perspective isn't just influenced by facts, it's filtered through emotions, energy, and even subtle bodily states. A walk in the park can feel uplifting or dull depending on your mood. Being aware of this filter changes interactions. Recognizing when your emotions are coloring perception allows you to pause and recalibrate. Sometimes stepping back, taking a breath, or shifting focus is enough to see the situation more clearly. Your mood is more than an internal state. It's a lens that shapes the world you perceive, and understanding that lens gives you insight into why people behave the way they do, and why your own judgments may fluctuate from moment to moment. Fact 19. People reveal attraction through body orientation. Ever noticed how someone subtly leans toward the person they like, even without realizing it? Body orientation is a silent language of attraction. It's not in what they say, but how they position themselves, angle their torso, or point their feet. Humans unconsciously orient toward what interests or engages them. Leaning forward, mirroring gestures, or opening the body signals attention and desire to connect. Even in casual conversation, these cues reveal underlying feelings. It's fascinating because it's mostly subconscious. People don't plan to give away their interest. The body simply follows instinct, and we respond to it too, leaning in ourselves or picking up on subtle signals that suggest mutual attraction. Awareness of this can make social interactions richer. It helps you read genuine interest versus polite engagement, and it reminds you how much communication happens silently. Often, what people show with posture speaks louder than what they say. In the end, attraction is less about words and more about subtle gestures, the invisible dialogue our bodies maintain even when our mouths are quiet. Fact 20. Silence makes people uncomfortable enough to reveal more. Silence is powerful, not the comfortable, reflective kind, but the intentional pause in conversation. People instinctively feel the need to fill gaps in dialogue, and in that brief quiet, they often reveal more than they intended. Think about it. You ask a question, then stay quiet. The other person starts talking, not just answering, but elaborating, justifying, or sharing little details they might have held back. Silence creates space, and the mind doesn't like empty spaces. It works in negotiations, interviews, and everyday conversations. The pause encourages honesty, reveals priorities, and sometimes exposes hidden thoughts. It's subtle, but it taps into a universal human tendency: discomfort with stillness. The key is patience. Don't rush to fill the silence. Let the other person speak, and you'll often uncover insights that words alone might never elicit. Silence is a quiet invitation. It shifts the balance of conversation, making space for truth, reflection, and unexpected honesty. And in a world full of noise, a pause can speak louder than words ever could. Fact 21. People love to talk about themselves. Have you noticed how conversations often drift back to the person talking? It's not selfish. It's human nature. People are wired to focus on their own experiences, stories, and perspectives. Sharing personal stories releases feel-good chemicals in the brain, making them feel valued and engaged. Even subtle cues show this. When someone gets a chance to explain their opinion or talk about their day, their attention spikes. They feel understood and noticed, which strengthens connection. This doesn't mean they ignore others. It just highlights how naturally humans seek recognition and affirmation. The funny thing is, listening to people talk about themselves isn't just polite. It actually makes you more likable. When you nod, respond, and ask thoughtful questions, you're giving them what their brain craves: acknowledgement. People remember how attentive you were far longer than the content of the conversation itself. This explains why interviews, networking, and even casual chats often feel smoother when you let the other person share first. And it's not manipulation, it's understanding how people operate. The desire to be heard is universal. So next time someone launches into a story about their day or their favourite hobby, resist the urge to interrupt. You're witnessing a natural rhythm of human behaviour, a need to share, to be recognised, and to connect. And by simply listening, you become part of that connection without even trying. Fact 22. Most arguments are about identity, not logic. Have you ever tried to win an argument with someone, only to feel like nothing really changed? That's because most arguments aren't about facts, they're about identity. People defend beliefs because they're tied to who they are, not because they've weighed evidence logically. It's subtle. A disagreement over politics, taste, or lifestyle often triggers a deeper defense. If I change my mind, who does that make me? The brain interprets challenges to core beliefs as threats to identity. That's why reasoning alone rarely resolves conflict. Emotions and self-perception are the real battleground. Understanding this changes how we argue, or avoid arguments altogether. Shifting from confrontation to curiosity helps. Asking questions, exploring perspectives, and acknowledging feelings opens dialogue without threatening identity. People relax when they feel respected, making real conversation possible. So next time a debate heats up, remember, the clash isn't just about ideas, it's about self, and approaching it with empathy rather than logic can transform conflict into connection. Fact 23. People use humour to mask pain. Ever laughed at a joke and then wondered if the person was actually okay? Humour is often a mask. People use it to cover discomfort, stress, or pain, letting the world see something lighter while hiding what's heavy inside. It's an instinctive defense. A well-timed joke redirects attention, diffuses tension, and makes difficult emotions more manageable. The brain rewards humor with dopamine, creating a small sense of relief even when underlying issues remain. That's why comedians, storytellers, and everyday jokers often have layers beneath their smiles. Humor doesn't eliminate struggle, but it provides a temporary shield, helping people cope, connect, or simply survive challenging moments. Recognizing this doesn't mean ignoring the laughter, it means understanding it. Sometimes a joke carries more than comedy, it carries resilience, subtle confession, or a glimpse into emotion someone isn't ready to share openly. Humor is more than entertainment. It's a window into human complexity, and knowing that gives us both compassion and perspective when life is being disguised with a smile. Fact 24. The brain notices threat before opportunity. Our brains are wired to spot danger faster than advantage. It's an evolutionary trick. Early humans survived by noticing predators before considering rewards. Today, that same mechanism operates in everyday life. A critical glance, a tense tone, or a minor risk triggers rapid attention, often before we see the positive side of a situation. This explains why negative news grabs attention, why criticism sticks, and why people sometimes overreact to minor issues. The mind prioritizes safety first, often filtering potential benefits through a lens of caution. Understanding this helps in relationships, work, and decision-making. Being aware that threat detection is automatic allows us to pause, weigh reality, and consider opportunities we might otherwise overlook. It also helps explain why some people seem risk-averse, while others appear fearless. Their brains weigh danger differently. It's a subtle reminder that humans are wired to protect themselves first, and opportunity often waits patiently until the mind feels safe enough to notice. Fact 25. People follow social proof, not logic. Ever notice how trends catch on even when they make little sense? Humans are social creatures, and social proof, what others do or approve of, often outweighs pure logic. If a crowd is buying a product, applauding a performance, or following a leader, we tend to follow too. It's a shortcut the brain uses. Observing others' behavior signals safety, acceptance, and correctness. In unfamiliar situations, following the group reduces risk and uncertainty. Logic can be slow, analysis-intensive, and sometimes emotionally draining, while social proof is immediate and persuasive. This explains why viral trends, popular opinions, and group behaviors spread so quickly. Even when we recognize a choice isn't perfect, seeing others embrace it nudges us toward the same path. Awareness of this tendency allows you to make more conscious decisions and resist automatic herd behavior. Humans thrive in groups, and our instincts push us to align with social cues. Understanding that reveals not only how influence works, but also how much of human behavior is quietly shaped by the people around us. Fact 26. FOMO drives. More behavior than desire. Have you ever bought a ticket, joined a trend, or signed up for something, not because you truly wanted it, but because you felt you might miss out? That's FOMO, the fear of missing out, and it's a surprisingly powerful driver of human behavior. FOMO taps into a deep instinct. Being left behind is uncomfortable. Evolutionarily, staying part of the group was critical for survival. Today it's less about safety, and more about social inclusion, status, and perceived opportunity. Even if we don't really want what others have, the idea of missing it sparks action. It shows up everywhere: social media, events, promotions, and everyday decisions. Limited time only, or everyone's joining, triggers a subtle pressure, nudging us to act faster than desire alone would, and the brain rewards participation with relief and satisfaction, reinforcing the behavior over time. The tricky part is that FOMO often disguises itself as genuine interest. You think, I really need this, but what you're really responding to is the anxiety of missing out. Awareness changes everything. Recognizing that feeling allows you to pause, evaluate, and decide whether it's actual desire or just a reaction to perceived scarcity. FOMO isn't inherently bad. It can motivate, connect, and create opportunities, but unchecked, it steers choices away from authenticity. And sometimes, the most satisfying decisions come from ignoring the crowd and following what truly matters to you. Fact 27. People overestimate how much others think about them. Have you ever walked into a room convinced everyone noticed that tiny stain on your shirt, or that awkward comment you made? Chances are they didn't. Humans tend to overestimate the attention others pay to them, a bias called the spotlight effect. It's a funny quirk of the mind. We experience everything from our own perspective, so small flaws, habits, or mistakes feel huge. But everyone else is caught up in their own world, noticing their own missteps, anxieties, and distractions. Most of what we think others see barely registers. This can make social interactions unnecessarily stressful. People rehearse conversations, replay embarrassing moments, and imagine judgment that isn't happening, and yet understanding this frees you. Recognizing that attention is limited allows you to relax, speak up, or take risks without overthinking every detail. The spotlight effect also reminds us that others feel the same way. Everyone overestimates scrutiny, and everyone fears judgment. Realizing that most people are focused inward fosters empathy and reduces social anxiety. In the end, knowing how little attention others truly pay can be liberating. You're more visible in your own mind than in anyone else's, and that tiny insight can transform confidence and perspective. Fact 28. The halo effect influences. Everyone ever met someone who seemed perfect just because they were attractive, charismatic, or accomplished, and suddenly everything they said felt smarter or more trustworthy. That's the halo effect in action. One positive trait spreads across perception, coloring judgments in ways we don't even notice. It works both ways. A small flaw or negative impression can overshadow strengths. The mind loves shortcuts, and the halo effect provides an effortless way to make sense of people quickly. It's subconscious, automatic, and nearly universal. This bias explains why first impressions matter so much, why celebrities are assumed to be talented, or why leaders with a polished appearance gain trust faster. And it reminds us that perception isn't always reality. Good traits can inflate influence, while small mistakes can unfairly diminish it. Being aware of the halo effect gives you an edge. You start questioning assumptions, separating qualities from overall judgments, and seeing people more objectively. It's a subtle nudge to look beyond the shine, or the shadow, and notice the whole picture. Perception is a tricky thing. A halo can brighten our view, but recognizing it ensures we don't mistake glow for truth. Fact 29. People trust. Deep voices more. There's something about a deep, steady voice that instantly feels trustworthy. Across cultures and situations, lower-pitched tones are associated with authority, competence, and reliability. It's subtle, subconscious, and surprisingly consistent. Evolutionarily, deep voices signaled strength, presence, and confidence, traits that inspired respect and trust. Today, the effect persists, shaping who we believe, follow, or take seriously in everyday life. Even if we consciously know pitch doesn't guarantee honesty, our brain still reacts first. This doesn't mean that only deep voices succeed, but awareness of vocal tone can help in communication. Speaking clearly, slowly, and with intentional modulation can enhance credibility, even if your natural voice isn't particularly low. It's less about dominance and more about projecting calm and assurance. Interestingly, people also remember content better when it's delivered in a voice that sounds confident and steady. Tone and pitch quietly shape perception in ways that words alone rarely do. So, next time you speak, consider not just what you say, but how it sounds. The pitch of your voice might be doing more work than your arguments ever could. Fact 30. Anger. Gives people a temporary sense of control. Ever felt a rush of clarity or power when angry? That's because anger tricks the brain into a fleeting sense of control. When events feel unfair or unpredictable, this emotion gives a burst of energy, focus, and motivation, as if you can take charge of the situation. It's part of human survival. Anger primes the body, heightens awareness, and signals action is necessary. And though it can feel empowering, the effect is short-lived. Decisions made while angry often overlook nuance, empathy, or long-term consequences. Interestingly, anger is contagious too. Seeing someone upset can trigger similar reactions, making social dynamics volatile. That's why emotional awareness is crucial. Understanding the temporary illusion of control helps prevent rash actions and misunderstandings. The key is channeling the energy productively. Expressing concerns calmly or redirecting focus allows the drive of anger to create solutions rather than conflict. Anger may give a momentary sense of strength, but the real power lies in recognizing it, pausing, and choosing the response wisely, turning a fleeting feeling into lasting impact. Fact 31. People seek closure, even when it hurts. Ever wondered why we chase answers even when the truth might sting? Humans crave closure. Our brains hate unresolved situations. They create mental tension that demands resolution. Even if finding out the answer hurts, we're drawn to it because uncertainty is more uncomfortable than disappointment. Think about relationships, unfinished projects, or unanswered questions. The unknown nags at the mind, pushing us to seek finality. Sometimes we even reopen wounds just to understand, process, or reconcile events. It's not masochism. It's the brain's way of trying to restore order. This drive for closure can be both helpful and tricky. It encourages problem-solving, learning, and reflection. Yet it can also keep us stuck, making it hard to move on from situations that are already painful. The key is recognizing when seeking closure serves growth versus when it prolongs suffering. Interestingly, closure isn't always about facts. A conversation, a ritual, or even a symbolic act can provide the same sense of resolution as concrete answers. Our minds are satisfied by narrative completion more than literal truth. Ultimately, humans are story seekers. We need beginnings, middles, and endings, even if the ending isn't perfect. Closure may not erase pain, but it eases the mind, allowing life to move forward with a little more clarity. Fact 32. The brain ignores details that don't match its beliefs. Have you ever noticed how people can hear the same information and come away with entirely different interpretations? That's because the brain filters details through existing beliefs. Information that conflicts with what we already think often gets overlooked, dismissed, or distorted. This is called confirmation bias. It's not about stubbornness, it's about efficiency. The brain processes vast amounts of information every second, so it relies on shortcuts. Prior beliefs act as filters, letting in what fits and ignoring what doesn't. The effect shows up in politics, work, relationships, and everyday choices. People selectively notice evidence that supports their views, sometimes missing the bigger picture entirely. Even first-hand experiences can be reframed to align with what the mind expects. Awareness helps. Recognizing this bias allows for more conscious reflection, curiosity, and openness. Seeking alternative perspectives or intentionally challenging assumptions can counteract the brain's natural filtering. Our minds love coherence over truth. By noticing how we ignore inconvenient details, we gain insight into both human behavior and our own thinking, and start seeing the world a little more clearly. Fact 33. People listen to validate, not understand. Ever shared a story and felt like the other person wasn't really listening, just nodding along? It's not always rudeness. Humans often listen to validate, not fully understand. The goal isn't comprehension, it's agreement, acknowledgement, or alignment with their own worldview. When someone responds too quickly, or offers advice before fully hearing you, it's often because their brain is processing how to react, not absorbing the full experience. Listening becomes about maintaining social harmony or showing empathy, rather than deep understanding. This doesn't mean people can't understand, it means understanding requires effort, focus, and curiosity. Awareness of this tendency helps in communication. Asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what you hear, or pausing to check understanding can create a more meaningful exchange. It's a reminder that conversations are rarely perfect mirrors. People often respond based on their perspective, priorities, and habits. Recognizing this makes interactions smoother, expectations clearer, and connections deeper. At the end of the day, listening is as much about intent as attention. True understanding requires patience, curiosity, and the willingness to look beyond validation. Fact 34. People reveal true priorities. Through time, not words. Ever notice someone saying they value health, family, or creativity, but their schedule tells a different story? Actions, particularly how we spend time, reveal priorities far more accurately than words ever could. Time is finite, and allocating it shows what genuinely matters. Working late, skipping events, or dedicating hours to a hobby signals commitment and preference. Words can be aspirational or performative. Behavior rarely lies. This is why observing routines, habits, and consistency paints a clearer picture of values than listening to statements. Someone might claim patience, but frequent interruptions tell a different story. Someone might profess care, but repeated absence conveys the real level of investment. Understanding this subtle truth reshapes relationships, work, and self-reflection. Paying attention to time, effort, and patterns helps identify what people truly value and how closely actions align with intentions. At the end of the day, words matter, but time tells the story. And noticing the difference between what people say and what they do unlocks a deeper understanding of human behavior. Fact 35. People respect boundaries more than pleasing. It's tempting to try to please everyone, to say yes, agree, or accommodate. But humans often respect clear boundaries more than attempts to please. Saying no, setting limits, or communicating preferences signals self-respect, which naturally commands respect from others. Boundaries clarify expectations. People are more likely to honour your needs when they're expressed openly, rather than guessing what might make you happy. Ironically, trying too hard to please can lead to resentment, misunderstanding, or diminished influence. This applies in work, friendships, and family dynamics. People respond to authenticity. When your actions match your words and your limits are clear, trust and respect increase. Attempting to be liked by bending too much often backfires. Boundaries aren't walls, they're guideposts. They show others how to treat you, what's acceptable, and how to engage meaningfully. And when respected, they create healthier, more honest relationships. Clear boundaries are a quiet superpower. Pleasing can win smiles in the moment, but boundaries earn lasting respect. And that's the difference between temporary approval and enduring connection. Fact 36. Curiosity beats willpower in changing behavior. Have you ever tried to force yourself to change a habit, only to give up after a few days? Willpower alone is exhausting. Interestingly, curiosity is a much stronger motivator. When you approach change with genuine interest, asking why and exploring possibilities, you engage the brain differently. Curiosity activates reward pathways, making learning and exploration feel enjoyable rather than obligatory. Instead of, I must resist dessert, thinking, I wonder what happens if I try this differently, sparks engagement and experimentation. It shifts behavior from a battle to an adventure. This explains why people stick to changes that intrigue them or satisfy a personal question. Habits reinforced by curiosity are more sustainable because they feel self-directed. Your mind enjoys discovery far more than restriction. The takeaway? Next time you want to adopt a new behavior, whether exercise, learning, or breaking a habit, frame it as exploration. Ask questions, experiment, and notice results. Curiosity transforms effort into enjoyment, creating lasting change without constant struggle. Change isn't about forcing willpower, it's about following the mind's natural fascination. Fact 37. People use busyness as a shield. Ever notice someone always claims to be too busy to engage deeply or respond fully? Humans often use busyness as a shield, protecting themselves from discomfort, confrontation, or vulnerability. Being occupied gives the brain a socially acceptable excuse to avoid situations that might feel threatening or emotionally taxing. Busyness signals importance, control, or productivity, but it often masks hesitation or anxiety. It's subtle. The mind feels safe when distracted, and socially, it's easier to explain absence with work or activity than with personal struggles. Understanding this changes how we interpret behavior. Not every "I'm too busy" is literal. Sometimes it's a way to maintain distance, preserve energy, or avoid emotional exposure. Awareness allows patience, empathy, and smarter communication. Sometimes all that's needed is a gentle invitation or understanding presence. Busyness is both armor and mirror. It protects but also signals underlying needs. Recognizing it adds depth to how we see others and ourselves. Fact 38. Most people avoid eye contact. When lying, have you ever wondered why someone suddenly looks away mid-conversation? One common reason is deception. Most people instinctively avoid eye contact when lying, though not always consciously. The brain senses the mismatch between words and reality, triggering discomfort that manifests as gaze aversion. It's subtle. A quick glance down, a distracted look to the side, or brief avoidance can signal internal conflict. But context matters. Nervousness, shyness, or cultural norms can also affect eye contact. Still, noticing patterns across multiple interactions often reveals telling clues. Eye contact isn't just about honesty, it's about connection. When someone struggles to maintain it, the mind registers tension and inconsistency. Observing, combined with listening and body cues, provides insight into what's genuine. This doesn't mean anyone avoiding your gaze is lying, it's just one signal among many. Paying attention to patterns and context helps you better understand subtle truths beneath the surface. Fact 39. People become more honest in low light. There's something intriguing about darkness. It makes people more candid. Research shows that in dim or low light environments, people are less guarded and more likely to reveal authentic thoughts. The brain perceives reduced visibility as lower social risk, which relaxes filters. This isn't about secrecy. It's about comfort. When faces, expressions, and surroundings are less prominent, self-consciousness decreases. People speak freely, share vulnerabilities, and admit things they might hesitate to in bright, socially exposed situations. This phenomenon explains why late-night conversations, evening gatherings, or cozy settings often lead to deeper, more honest dialogue. Lighting subtly influences psychology, shaping openness and disclosure without anyone realizing it. The next time you want a candid conversation, consider the environment. Sometimes, less light creates more clarity, not for the eyes, but for the mind. Fact 40. People feel safer. Around predictable behavior, humans crave predictability. Even small routines or consistent habits provide comfort because they reduce uncertainty. When someone behaves consistently, their actions are easier to anticipate, which signals safety to the brain. This is why workplaces, relationships, and friendships thrive on reliability. Sudden, unpredictable behavior triggers stress and caution. Conversely, patterns, even minor ones, create trust, stability, and a sense of control. It's subtle but powerful. Predictable gestures, tones, and responses reassure others. This doesn't mean spontaneity isn't enjoyable, but balance is key. Predictability builds trust, and novelty sparks engagement. Recognizing the value of consistency helps in both observing and shaping behavior. People may not articulate why they feel comfortable, but the mind quietly notices the rhythm of reliability. Predictable behavior isn't boring. It's a silent signal that everything is safe enough to engage, connect, and thrive. Fact 41. People love those who make them feel seen. Have you ever met someone who instantly made you feel understood, even without saying much? Humans crave acknowledgement. Feeling truly seen, noticed for who you are, sparks connection and warmth in a way that words alone rarely achieve. It's subtle, a nod, a smile, remembering small details, or responding thoughtfully creates a sense of recognition. The brain interprets these signals as validation, which releases feel-good chemicals and strengthens bonds. This explains why great listeners, empathetic friends, and thoughtful partners are so magnetic. They don't just hear words, they notice patterns, moods, and nuances making people feel valued. It's not manipulation, it's attentiveness that humans naturally respond to. Even small gestures count. A compliment about effort rather than outcome, a recall of a past story, or an acknowledgement of feelings can make someone feel truly seen. Over time, these moments build trust, loyalty, and emotional resonance. At the heart of connection is simple: recognition. People gravitate toward those who notice, appreciate, and honor their presence, because being seen is a rare and powerful gift. Fact 42. The brain judges faces in 1/10 of a second. It's incredible but true. The human brain forms judgments about a face faster than a blink. In less than 1/10 of a second, we assess trustworthiness, dominance, attractiveness, and even emotional state, mostly subconsciously. This rapid judgment evolved to protect us. Spotting a potential ally or threat quickly could be a matter of survival. Today, it still influences first impressions, interviews, dating, and casual encounters, even though actual danger is rarely involved. The kicker? These snap judgments are often flawed. A nervous glance, a neutral expression, or a tired face can create unintended impressions, yet our brains treat these cues as reliable data, shaping opinions before words are even spoken. Understanding this gives you perspective. Awareness of split-second judgments helps temper first impressions, both of others and ourselves. We can pause, reconsider, and recognize that the initial perception may not reflect reality. In the end, faces communicate instantly, silently influencing how we feel and react. A single glance can trigger judgments, but knowing the speed and subtlety of this process helps us see beyond it. Fact 43. People hide stress in their shoulders. Ever notice someone shrugging, tensing, or carrying weight unevenly? Stress often shows up in the shoulders, neck, and upper back. The body responds to tension long before the mind fully registers it. When someone is anxious, overwhelmed, or pressured, muscles contract automatically, posture tightens, movements become guarded, and gestures shrink. It's subtle, but observant eyes can pick up these signs even when the person is smiling or speaking confidently. This hidden stress can affect interactions. People may appear calm verbally, but physically signal unease. Recognizing these cues helps in communication, empathy, and understanding hidden layers of human behavior. Interestingly, physical release, stretching, shaking out tension, or changing posture often reduces mental stress too. The body and mind are deeply linked, and awareness of physical signals provides insight into unspoken emotions. Stress may be invisible in conversation, but the shoulders rarely lie. Observing the body can reveal what words alone might conceal. Fact 44. Overthinking makes people assume the worst. Ever find yourself replaying a conversation, worrying about every possible outcome and expecting the worst? Overthinking is a trap the brain falls into, often exaggerating risks and misreading intentions. The mind tries to protect us, simulating potential scenarios to prepare for danger. But when unchecked, it magnifies uncertainty, creates imagined threats, and fuels anxiety. Small misunderstandings seem catastrophic, and neutral behaviors are interpreted negatively. This tendency affects relationships, decisions, and self-perception. People overanalyze gestures, emails, or casual remarks, assuming hidden meanings or ill intent. Awareness is the first step in breaking the cycle. Pausing, questioning assumptions, and grounding thoughts in reality can prevent spirals. Overthinking is a reflection of care, the mind wanting control, but the cost is often stress and distorted perception. Learning to step back allows clarity, calm, and more accurate understanding of the world and people around us. Fact 45. Kindness is often misread as weakness. Being kind doesn't always earn the recognition it deserves. Humans sometimes misinterpret gentle, compassionate behavior as weakness, rather than a conscious choice rooted in confidence and empathy. This misunderstanding arises because many associate strength with assertiveness or dominance. When someone consistently acts with patience, generosity, or understanding, it challenges that expectation. The brain can mislabel it, underestimating capability or resilience. Yet kindness requires control, awareness, and courage. Choosing compassion over reaction is often harder than forceful behavior. People who act kindly aren't weak. They're mastering emotional intelligence and influence in subtle ways. Recognizing this helps in both giving and receiving kindness. It reminds us that true strength can be quiet, measured, and deliberate. And it reinforces the idea that judging someone solely by outward assertiveness misses the deeper power of empathy and restraint. Kindness is a silent strength, often overlooked, but profoundly transformative for those who understand its value. Fact 46. People bond over shared struggles. More than successes. Have you ever noticed how quickly friendships form when people talk about challenges or hardships? Humans connect more deeply over struggles than achievements. Facing difficulty creates empathy, understanding, and a shared sense of humanity that success alone rarely provides. Sharing struggles allows vulnerability, and vulnerability fosters trust. When someone admits fear, failure, or uncertainty, The listener often feels permission to do the same. The brain rewards these interactions with oxytocin, strengthening bonds and creating genuine connection. Success stories can inspire, but they rarely evoke the same emotional intimacy. Struggles create common ground, reveal character, and allow people to see each other beyond surface appearances. It's why support groups, late-night confessions, and honest conversations feel so meaningful. They tap into this deep wiring. The takeaway? Don't shy away from admitting difficulty or imperfection. Sharing challenges invites closeness and trust in ways achievements alone cannot. Connections built on authenticity tend to last longer and feel more fulfilling. Struggles aren't just obstacles, they're bridges to understanding, empathy, and human connection. Fact 47. The brain rewards us for gossiping. It's human nature. We talk about others, and surprisingly, the brain actually rewards gossip. Discussing people, stories, or events triggers pleasure centers, releasing dopamine and giving a sense of social satisfaction. Gossip isn't inherently malicious. Sharing information helps humans navigate social networks, learn norms, and understand relationships. It's a survival mechanism, allowing us to predict behavior and make informed decisions in social environments. Even casual chatter about someone else reinforces social bonds. When we exchange information, we're also signaling trust, awareness, and belonging. The brain interprets this as rewarding, which is why gossip spreads so quickly, even when we know it's trivial or off-limits. Awareness is key. Recognizing the reward mechanism helps balance curiosity with ethics. Gossip can bond or harm depending on intent. Understanding why it feels gratifying allows you to navigate social interactions thoughtfully. Humans talk about each other because it feels good, and understanding that instinct reveals much about how we connect, learn, and influence one another. Fact 48. People talk faster. When nervous, ever notice someone speeding through words when anxious or under pressure? Nervousness often accelerates speech. The mind races, the body energizes, and language becomes rapid, sometimes jumbling thoughts before they're fully formed. It's a physiological response. Stress hormones increase heart rate and alertness, signaling urgency. Speech becomes a reflection of inner tension, revealing emotions even when the person tries to hide them. Rapid talking can indicate excitement, fear, or discomfort. Observing pacing provides insight into someone's state. Pauses, hesitations, and fluctuations in rhythm all carry meaning. Nervous speed isn't just a quirk, it's the body and brain working together to process emotion and communicate under pressure. Being aware of this helps in conversation. Slow, steady responses can calm both speaker and listener, while recognizing accelerated speech allows empathy and patience. Communication is as much about rhythm as it is about words. Nervous speed may feel chaotic, but it's a signal, a glimpse into the mind in motion. Fact 49. People copy the breathing of someone they trust. Have you noticed how close friends, partners, or teammates often sync unconsciously? Breathing is one subtle way trust manifests. Humans naturally mirror the respiration of those they feel connected to, creating harmony and signaling safety. It's more than coincidence. When someone's breathing aligns with yours, the brain interprets it as cooperation and shared understanding. This synchronization fosters calm, reduces tension, and strengthens emotional connection without conscious effort. Athletes, performers, and even casual friends experience this. The phenomenon explains why being around trusted people feels comforting. The body mirrors rhythms, reinforcing emotional resonance. Awareness of this subtle cue reveals who is genuinely trusted or comfortable in a group. Trust isn't just spoken, it's embodied, and breathing, often overlooked, quietly communicates connection, safety, and alignment between people. Fact 50. Body language reveals dominance. More than words can be controlled, edited, or rehearsed, but body language often speaks first and truer. Dominance, confidence, and influence are communicated largely through posture, gestures, and presence rather than vocabulary. Open stances, steady gaze, deliberate movements, and space occupations signal authority without a single word. Conversely, closed-off postures, fidgeting, or avoiding eye contact often convey submission or uncertainty. The brain interprets these cues instantly, shaping impressions before verbal content is processed. This is why leaders, negotiators, and influential individuals often command attention effortlessly. They project dominance through subtle, consistent signals. Awareness of body language enhances both self-presentation and perception of others. Words can convince the rational mind, but the body convinces instinctively. Recognizing and mastering nonverbal cues reveals the silent power of presence in human interaction. Dominance is less about speaking and more about inhabiting space confidently, a language the brain reads instinctively. Fact 51. People value scarcity over quality. Have you ever rushed to buy something just because it was limited edition or almost sold out? That's scarcity at work. Humans are wired to value what seems rare more than what's necessarily better. The brain interprets scarcity as a signal of importance, worth, or opportunity. Scarcity taps into survival instincts. In early human environments, resources were limited, and missing out could be costly. Today, the effect shows up in marketing, social situations, and even relationships. Last chance triggers action faster than careful evaluation. Interestingly, scarcity often overshadows quality. People may pay more, wait longer, or overlook flaws just because something feels exclusive. Awareness of this instinct allows smarter decisions and helps you recognize when desire is being influenced by perception rather than substance. Scarcity creates urgency, excitement, and focus, but it also reminds us how easily the brain can be nudged by the sense of missing out rather than the intrinsic value of something. Fact 52. Vulnerability makes people like you more. It might seem counterintuitive, but showing vulnerability actually increases trust and likability. When people reveal fears, doubts, or imperfections, it signals honesty and courage, qualities humans respond to positively. Vulnerability is contagious. When one person opens up, others often feel safe to do the same, deepening connection. It creates empathy and signals that you're human, approachable, and relatable. People rarely warm to perfection, they respond to authenticity. This applies everywhere: friendships, workplaces, and even public interactions. Admitting mistakes, sharing lessons learned, or expressing emotions invites trust. It's not about oversharing, it's about measured openness that fosters understanding. Vulnerability is a bridge. It transforms superficial interaction into meaningful connection, proving that authenticity often has more impact than flawless performance. Fact 53. People judge. Messages by the messenger. Have you ever ignored advice or disagreed with information simply because of who delivered it? Humans don't evaluate messages in isolation, they judge the messenger first. Credibility, appearance, tone, and perceived status influence how words are received. This is why first impressions matter, why endorsements carry weight, and why the same argument can succeed or fail depending on delivery. The brain quickly assesses trustworthiness before analyzing content, often unconsciously. Awareness of this helps in communication. Choosing the right tone, demonstrating reliability, and building rapport can make messages more effective. Conversely, recognizing bias toward the messenger helps you evaluate information more objectively. People aren't just listening, they're judging, and the messenger often determines whether the message lands. Fact 54. The brain prefers simple explanations. Complex ideas can be fascinating, but the brain naturally favors simplicity. When faced with complicated information, it seeks patterns and shortcuts to make sense quickly. Simple explanations are easier to process, remember, and act upon. This doesn't mean depth isn't valuable. It means clarity matters. Clear, concise communication is persuasive because it aligns with the brain's preference for cognitive efficiency. Metaphors, analogies, and stories are powerful because they simplify complex concepts without losing meaning. Understanding this bias explains why catchy ideas, easy-to-follow instructions, and memorable slogans spread so effectively. The mind rewards comprehension and coherence, and simple explanations provide both. Simplicity isn't about dumbing down, it's about meeting the brain where it naturally seeks understanding. Fact 55. People remember the ending more than the middle. Have you ever noticed recalling a story, movie, or event, and the ending sticks more than the middle parts? That's the recency effect at work. Humans are wired to remember how experiences finish, often over the details of what came before. The brain prioritizes endings because they signal resolution, closure, or lessons learned. Memorable conclusions evoke emotions, mark transitions, and provide cues for future decisions. This is why storytellers, teachers, and leaders emphasize strong conclusions. They leave lasting impressions. Awareness of this effect can shape interactions. Finishing conversations, presentations, or experiences on a strong note ensures they are remembered positively. Even minor details matter, but the final impression carries disproportionate weight. The end is more than a conclusion, it's the anchor of memory, quietly shaping how humans perceive and recall the entire experience. Fact 56. Jealousy comes from comparison, not desire. Ever felt jealous of someone's success, looks, or possessions? Interestingly, jealousy rarely stems from what you truly want. It comes from comparing yourself to others. The brain constantly gauges social standing, and perceived gaps trigger feelings of envy. It's not about desire for the item or achievement itself. You might not even want what someone else has, but seeing it highlights a difference in status, recognition, or personal progress. That comparison activates emotions tied to self-worth, making jealousy feel intensely personal. Recognizing this shifts perspective. Instead of focusing on what others have, attention can be turned inward, toward growth, goals, and self-appreciation. Awareness reduces unnecessary stress and fosters healthier interactions. Jealousy is less about wanting and more about measuring. By noticing the comparison trap, we can respond with curiosity, reflection, and motivation rather than resentment. Fact 57. People hide fear behind anger. Have you ever encountered someone lashing out seemingly without reason? Often, what looks like anger masks fear. Humans instinctively cover vulnerability with assertiveness, projecting strength when the underlying emotion is uncertainty or worry. This happens subconsciously. The brain associates fear with potential danger, and outward aggression signals control, dominance, or protection. While the emotion appears intense, it often serves as a shield, preventing others from seeing insecurity or anxiety. Recognizing this transforms perspective. Anger isn't always a personal attack. It can indicate underlying concern or discomfort. Approaching it with patience and empathy can diffuse tension and reveal the real emotion beneath the surface. Anger may feel powerful, but fear often drives it. Seeing beyond the surface provides insight into the complexity of human reactions. Fact 58. People repeat behaviors that earn validation. Ever notice how someone keeps doing something that gets them praise, likes, or attention? Humans are wired to repeat behaviors that earn social validation. The brain rewards recognition, creating patterns of reinforced action. This applies everywhere. Sharing achievements, performing acts of kindness, or even subtle social gestures. Validation triggers dopamine, making the behavior pleasurable and likely to recur. Even unconscious recognition, like a smile or nod, can reinforce actions. Understanding this helps explain why habits, routines, or repeated social behaviors persist. People aren't always aware they're seeking reinforcement, but their brain remembers what brings approval and subtly nudges them toward repetition. Validation shapes behavior quietly yet powerfully. Awareness allows us to see the motivation behind repeated actions, both in ourselves and others. Fact 59. The brain avoids cognitive dissonance. Humans hate conflicting information. Cognitive dissonance occurs when beliefs, actions, or knowledge clash, creating discomfort. To reduce this tension, the brain either justifies, ignores, or changes perception, preserving a sense of internal harmony. This explains why people rationalize mistakes, resist contradictory facts, or reinterpret experiences. It's not stubbornness, it's the brain seeking equilibrium. Maintaining consistency between thought and action feels safer than confronting contradiction head-on. Understanding this helps navigate disagreements and self-reflection. Recognizing the instinct to avoid dissonance allows space for open inquiry and growth, rather than defensive reaction. The mind seeks comfort in coherence. Conflict between thought and reality creates stress, and humans naturally find ways to restore balance. Fact 60. People reveal truth through micropauses. Have you noticed subtle pauses in conversation? Those tiny breaks, hesitation before answering, or delayed responses often reveal more than words themselves. Humans inadvertently signal uncertainty, thought, or honesty through micropauses. The brain processes information before speaking, and brief delays can indicate deliberation, hidden feelings, or an attempt to navigate a tricky truth. Observant listeners pick up on these pauses to gauge sincerity, emotion, or emphasis. Micropauses aren't always intentional. They're a window into internal thought. They reveal the rhythm of cognition, emotional processing, and subtle truth beneath spoken language. In conversation, listening for these pauses adds depth. What isn't said often matters as much as the words themselves, offering insight into human thought and emotion. Fact 61. People believe what they want to be true. Ever notice how some people cling to ideas or opinions despite evidence to the contrary? Humans naturally gravitate toward beliefs that align with desires, values, or hopes. The brain prefers comfort over conflict, and accepting what feels right is easier than processing what's inconvenient or challenging. This tendency explains why people often ignore facts, reinterpret events, or favor selective information. It's not laziness. It's the mind seeking emotional equilibrium. Beliefs tied to identity, relationships, or aspirations feel safer to hold on to than uncomfortable truths. Awareness helps. Recognizing this bias allows us to question assumptions and approach both ourselves and others with curiosity rather than judgment. It also highlights why persuasion often fails when it clashes with deeply held desires. Humans see reality through the lens of what they want to be true. Understanding this subtle bias gives insight into why perception often outweighs objective fact. Fact 62. The brain prioritizes survival over happiness. It's easy to think the brain wants comfort or joy above all, but survival comes first. Humans evolved to notice threats, respond to danger, and protect resources, sometimes at the expense of pleasure or long-term happiness. This explains anxiety, caution, and the brain's focus on worst-case scenarios. Even when life feels safe, the mind scans for potential risk, preparing the body and emotions for challenges. It's a protective mechanism that keeps us alert and responsive. Happiness isn't ignored, it's secondary. Safety and survival dominate cognitive processing, influencing decisions, habits, and social interactions. Awareness of this priority helps explain behavior that seems overly cautious, controlling, or risk-averse. The brain's first job is survival. Happiness is a reward that comes when safety is ensured, not the starting point of human experience. Fact 63. People lie more to avoid hurting others. Not all lies are selfish. Often, people bend the truth to protect feelings. These white lies are meant to smooth social interactions, prevent disappointment, or maintain harmony. Humans are wired for empathy and connection, so hurting someone can create internal tension. Small untruths reduce that discomfort, balancing honesty with compassion. The brain interprets social harmony as valuable, sometimes more than strict truthfulness. Of course, motives matter. While white lies are well-intentioned, repeated avoidance of honesty can undermine trust. Recognizing the balance between protecting feelings and maintaining transparency is key to navigating relationships effectively. People don't always lie to deceive, they often lie to care. Understanding this nuance adds depth to how we perceive honesty and intent. Fact 64. Smiling makes you seem more competent. A simple smile does more than signal friendliness. Research shows that people who smile are often perceived as more competent, approachable, and trustworthy. The brain responds positively to expressions that indicate openness and confidence. Smiling isn't just social, it's strategic. It reduces tension, fosters cooperation, and enhances likability. Even subtle smiles can influence perception in interviews, presentations, or casual interactions. Interestingly, competence and warmth aren't mutually exclusive. A confident smile signals capability while maintaining approachability, bridging authority and connection. It's a silent cue that speaks volumes before words even arrive. Next time you want to leave a strong impression, remember, the simplest expression, the smile, often carries the most weight. Fact 65. People show attraction through foot direction. We often look at eyes, gestures, and body language to gauge attraction, but feet reveal subtle truths. Humans unconsciously point their feet toward people or things they like, signaling interest even when other signals are masked. It's an instinctive behavior. The brain directs attention toward what matters, and the body naturally aligns. Shifts in foot direction can indicate curiosity, attraction, or engagement long before conscious signals appear. Observing this detail adds depth to understanding social dynamics. Feet rarely lie, they reveal focus, preference, and connection in ways that words or even facial expressions sometimes conceal. Subtle signals, like foot direction, quietly expose where attention and emotion truly lie, reminding us that attraction is often more embodied than spoken. Fact 66. The brain forgets what it finds. Boring. Have you ever tried to pay attention during a dull lecture, only to realize you can't remember anything later? That's the brain at work. Humans are wired to prioritize interesting, novel, or emotionally engaging information. When something feels boring, the brain essentially ignores it. This isn't laziness, it's efficiency. Processing and storing every detail would overwhelm memory and attention. Instead, the brain tags dull or irrelevant information as low priority and lets it fade quickly. That's why captivating stories, humor, or surprise make experiences more memorable. Understanding this helps in learning, teaching, and communicating. To retain information, it needs to engage emotions, curiosity, or imagination. Facts alone aren't enough. The mind remembers what sparks interest and resonates on a personal level. The takeaway? Boring is forgettable. To leave a lasting impression, make experiences engaging, relevant, and meaningful, because the brain remembers what excites it. Fact 67. People get happier when they help others. Have you ever noticed that helping someone can lift your mood instantly? That's no coincidence. Acts of kindness trigger the brain's reward system, releasing feel-good chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin, which enhance happiness and well-being. Helping doesn't have to be grand. Small gestures, a compliment, holding a door, offering support, can produce the same effect. The brain interprets altruism as social bonding, signaling connection, purpose, and value. This explains why volunteers, mentors, and caregivers often report higher life satisfaction. Humans aren't just wired to receive. They thrive when giving, contributing, and supporting others. It creates a feedback loop. Helping makes you feel good, which encourages more helping. Acts of kindness aren't just socially positive, they're biologically rewarding. Happiness often grows when it's shared. Fact 68. People mimic vocabulary to build rapport. Have you ever noticed that conversations with close friends or colleagues often share phrases, expressions, or even slang? Humans unconsciously mimic the vocabulary of those they want to connect with. This linguistic mirroring builds rapport and signals social alignment. The brain sees shared language as a sign of similarity, trust, and understanding. Using similar words or patterns increases comfort and encourages collaboration, even without conscious effort. It's why interviews, negotiations, and social bonding often succeed when language subtly aligns. Mimicking vocabulary doesn't mean copying blindly. It's a natural way to demonstrate empathy, attentiveness, and social harmony. Being aware of this can improve relationships, communication, and influence. Language is more than words. It's a bridge between minds, quietly strengthening connection. Fact 69. Strong emotions make people bad decision makers. Ever made a choice while angry, scared, or overjoyed, only to regret it later? Strong emotions hijack the brain's rational processes, making decision-making less reliable. Emotional arousal narrows focus, exaggerates perceived risks, and biases judgment. This isn't about weakness, it's biology. The brain prioritizes immediate survival or emotional responses over logical evaluation. Fear, anger, or excitement can cloud perspective, leading to impulsive or unbalanced choices. Awareness helps. Pausing, reflecting, or waiting until emotions settle allows clearer thinking and better outcomes. Strong feelings are informative, but they aren't always the best guide for decisions that matter. Emotions enrich experience, but decision-making thrives when the mind balances feeling with reflection. Fact 70. People reveal anxiety in their hands. Hands are one of the first places stress shows itself. Fidgeting, gripping, rubbing, or tapping often signal nervousness or anxiety long before words indicate tension. The brain and body are tightly linked, and hands act as visible outlets for internal emotion. These subtle cues are easy to miss unless you're paying attention. Shaking hands, repetitive gestures, or avoidance of touch often reveal discomfort, insecurity, or anticipation. Observing hands provides insight into someone's emotional state without needing explicit admission. This awareness is useful in communication, relationships, and negotiation. The hands rarely lie, quietly exposing the underlying rhythm of emotion and thought. Anxiety speaks in gestures, and attentive observation can reveal truths hidden beneath the surface of conversation. Fact 71. The brain creates stories to fill missing details. Have you ever remembered an event only to realize some parts weren't exactly how they happened? That's because the brain loves a complete story. When details are missing, it fills gaps with assumptions, memories from other experiences, or imaginative reconstructions. This storytelling tendency keeps our perception coherent, but it also means memory isn't a perfect record. The mind prefers a smooth narrative over fragmented reality, creating continuity even if some details are inaccurate. This explains why eyewitness accounts often differ, and why our recollections of the past can change over time. Understanding this reveals a lot about human behavior. Our judgments, beliefs, and decisions are often influenced not just by facts, but by the stories our brain constructs around them. Awareness of this can help us question assumptions and approach memory and others' recollections with empathy. The mind is a storyteller at heart, weaving reality into narrative threads that make sense to us, even when the details aren't perfect. Fact 72. People seek familiar pain over uncertain happiness. It sounds strange, but humans often stick with what they know, even if it's unpleasant. Predictable discomfort feels safer than uncertain joy. The brain values predictability and security over risk, even when the risk could lead to happiness. This explains why people sometimes stay in routines, relationships, or situations that aren't fulfilling. Familiar pain is predictable. The unknown, even if positive, is uncertain. The brain prefers stability, and uncertainty triggers caution and anxiety. Recognizing this tendency allows us to reflect on choices. Growth often requires stepping out of comfort zones and embracing uncertainty, even when it feels risky. The mind may resist, but conscious awareness helps override instinctual caution. Humans crave security, sometimes more than pleasure. The challenge is balancing safety with opportunity for joy. Fact 73. People trust consistency over intensity. Ever notice how a calm, steady person often inspires more confidence than someone dramatic or intense? Humans value consistency. Predictable behavior, repeated actions, and steady patterns signal reliability, which the brain interprets as trustworthy. Intensity can be flashy and attention-grabbing, but it rarely builds lasting confidence. Sudden bursts of emotion, sporadic actions, or extreme gestures may impress momentarily but often fail to inspire trust over time. Reliability communicates competence and safety. In relationships, leadership, and collaboration, steady consistency wins the day. People subconsciously evaluate patterns and adjust expectations accordingly. Being dependable is often more persuasive than being extreme or spectacular. Consistency isn't boring, it's credible. The brain rewards it with trust and assurance. Fact 74. Confidence can be learned through behavior. Confidence might feel innate, but it's largely learned through action. Adopting confident posture, tone, and gestures can shape both perception and internal feeling. The brain interprets outward behavior as evidence of competence, gradually reinforcing self-assurance. Even small changes, standing tall, making eye contact, speaking clearly, send signals to others and to your own mind. Acting confidently, even when unsure, triggers mental patterns that support authentic confidence over time. This approach shows that confidence isn't a mystery. It's a skill built through practice, reflection, and repetition. Mindset and behavior reinforce each other, creating a feedback loop that strengthens self-belief. Confidence is cultivated, not born. By choosing how you act, you influence both perception and reality. Fact 75. People follow leaders who offer certainty. Humans naturally seek guidance in uncertainty, and leaders who provide clarity, direction, and predictability are more likely to inspire followership. The brain craves stability and reassurance, and clear, confident leadership meets that need. Certainty doesn't mean inflexibility, it means offering a vision, values, or decisions that people can rely on. In ambiguous situations, decisive action reduces anxiety and creates trust. Leaders who communicate clear intentions earn loyalty, while indecision breeds doubt. This explains why charismatic leaders often succeed in chaotic environments. People follow not only for strategy, but for psychological security. Certainty signals competence and safety, making adherence feel natural rather than coerced. Humans gravitate toward clarity. The promise of direction often outweighs complexity or uncertainty in determining whom we trust and follow. Fact 76. People reveal insecurities through overcompensation. Have you ever met someone who brags, dominates conversations, or constantly seeks validation? Often, this behavior masks insecurity. Humans unconsciously overcompensate to cover perceived weaknesses or vulnerabilities. The brain uses outward displays, confidence, authority, or exaggeration to protect self-esteem. Someone unsure of their abilities may act louder, flashier, or more controlling to signal competence. Interestingly, overcompensation can backfire, drawing attention to the very insecurities it aims to hide. Recognizing these patterns provides insight into human behavior. It's rarely about arrogance. It's often about fear of judgment, failure, or inadequacy. Awareness fosters empathy and allows more meaningful connection rather than confrontation. Insecurities speak loudly when unspoken. Overcompensation is the brain's way of protecting itself, even if the effort is transparent to others. Fact 77. The brain reacts to rejection. Like physical pain, it might surprise you, but social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. Feeling excluded, ignored, or dismissed triggers real discomfort, an evolutionary signal to maintain social bonds and survival. The intensity is real. Just as a scraped knee alerts the body to danger, emotional rejection signals the brain that a social connection is at risk. It explains why rejection can feel so visceral, lingering longer than the event itself. Understanding this helps explain behavior. People often act defensively, withdraw, or overcompensate after being rejected. Recognizing the emotional weight of exclusion encourages empathy and patience, both toward others and oneself. Rejection isn't just emotional, it's biological. The brain interprets social pain as a real signal, shaping responses and human interaction. Fact 78. Excessive smiling can signal nervousness. Smiles usually communicate warmth and friendliness, but when they appear too often or too quickly, they can signal nervousness. Oversmiling may be the brain's way of masking anxiety, discomfort, or insecurity in social situations. This behavior isn't conscious. The mind instinctively uses smiling to smooth interactions and reduce perceived threat. Observers often interpret it as sincerity, but subtle cues, tension around the eyes, rapid changes in expression, can betray underlying unease. Being aware of this nuance improves social perception. Smiles are powerful communicators, but context and consistency reveal the difference between confidence and concealed stress. Sometimes, a smile hides more than it shows. Observing the details provides a richer understanding of human emotion. Fact 79. People use silence as a power move. Silence can speak louder than words. Humans often use it strategically, pausing, withholding comment, or remaining quiet, to influence others, control pacing, or signal authority. The brain interprets prolonged silence as thoughtful, mysterious, or dominant. In negotiations, conversations, or disagreements, silence can unsettle, provoke disclosure, or command attention. It's a subtle tool, often more effective than assertive speech, because the mind instinctively searches for meaning in the quiet. Understanding this dynamic provides insight into influence and communication. Silence isn't absence. It's a deliberate signal that shapes perception, behavior, and social dynamics. Quietness carries weight. People often respond more to what isn't said than what is. Fact 80. People break rules. When they feel unseen, humans are social creatures, and the sense of being unnoticed can affect behavior dramatically. When people feel unobserved or undervalued, the brain lowers adherence to social norms, sometimes prompting rule-breaking or impulsive actions. This isn't always malicious. It's a response to the perception that social consequences are absent. Feeling invisible can lead to testing limits, taking risks, or seeking attention in subtle ways. Awareness of this tendency highlights the importance of recognition, supervision, and engagement. People rarely act solely out of defiance. They respond to visibility and acknowledgement. Feeling seen is a quiet motivator for compliance, cooperation, and responsible behavior. Rules aren't just external, they're socially reinforced. When the brain senses invisibility, boundaries often lose their power. Fact 81. People project their feelings onto others. Ever caught yourself thinking someone is angry or judgmental, only to realize it was you feeling that way first? Humans have a natural tendency to project internal emotions onto others. The brain often assumes others feel the same as we do, especially in ambiguous situations. Projection can lead to misunderstandings. If you're stressed, you might interpret someone else's neutral behavior as irritability. If you feel insecure, you might perceive criticism that wasn't intended. It's a mental shortcut the brain uses to make sense of social interactions quickly, but it's not always accurate. Recognizing projection helps in relationships and self-awareness. Pausing to question whether an emotion belongs to you or someone else can prevent unnecessary conflict. It also fosters empathy, allowing more accurate understanding of others' intentions. Feelings are contagious, but sometimes they're just reflections of our own mind. Understanding projection helps untangle perception from reality. Fact 82. The brain loves stories. More than data, numbers, and facts have their place, but the human brain is wired for narrative. Stories engage emotion, imagination, and memory in ways raw data rarely can. A compelling story creates mental images, emotional resonance, and personal relevance, making it far more memorable. This is why anecdotes, metaphors, and real-life examples are persuasive. The brain processes stories holistically, connecting ideas, emotions, and sequences in a way that abstracts or statistics cannot replicate. Information presented as a story sticks longer and influences behavior more effectively. Understanding this explains why marketing, teaching, and leadership often rely on storytelling. Even small narrative elements can transform dull facts into vivid, lasting impressions. Humans aren't just thinking machines, we're storytelling creatures. Facts gain life when wrapped in narrative, resonating deeply with both memory and emotion. Fact 83. People reveal boredom by pointing their feet away. You may focus on faces or posture, but feet often give away true attention. When someone's feet point away from a conversation or interaction, it signals disengagement or boredom. The body naturally orients toward what matters most, and feet rarely lie. It's subtle, but telling. Even polite smiles or nods can't fully mask a subconscious signal like foot direction. Observing this detail can provide a more accurate read on attention, interest, and engagement than words or facial expressions alone. Being aware of these cues allows you to adjust interactions, re-engaging attention, shifting topics, or acknowledging disinterest without embarrassment. The feet silently communicate focus, desire, or avoidance, often more honestly than speech. Where words fail, feet speak. Their direction reveals attention and interest in ways most people overlook. Fact 84. People talk less about what matters. Most. Ironically, the most important things are often the hardest to discuss. Humans shy away from vulnerability, conflict, or deep emotion, which means conversations often skirt the subjects that truly matter. Small talk, routines, and superficial details dominate daily interaction. The brain avoids potential discomfort, embarrassment, or social risk. favoring safe topics over meaningful ones. This doesn't mean people don't care. It's a protective mechanism to manage uncertainty and preserve connection. Awareness of this pattern encourages conscious communication. Asking thoughtful questions, listening attentively, and creating safe spaces can help uncover what truly matters beneath the surface. Often, the richest insights emerge when you look beyond casual chatter. What's said is rarely everything. The real story often lies in the unspoken or unexplored topics. Fact 85. People follow the energy in a room. Have you noticed how moods spread in groups? Humans instinctively pick up on the emotional tone around them. Whether excitement, tension, or calm, people align behavior and attitude with the energy present. This is more than social pressure. It's a survival instinct. Reading and syncing with group emotion helps navigate social dynamics, anticipate reactions, and maintain cohesion. Leaders, performers, or influencers often harness this energy, guiding attention and mood subtly but powerfully. Awareness of group energy can enhance communication, collaboration, and influence. Being attuned allows you to respond appropriately, contribute positively, and even shift the atmosphere if needed. Energy is contagious. Humans respond instinctively, and understanding this dynamic gives insight into how emotions ripple through social settings. Fact 86. The brain notices micro changes in tone. Instantly. Have you ever sensed someone's mood just by hearing the slightest shift in their voice? Humans are wired to detect micro changes in tone instantly. A subtle pitch variation, hesitation, or emphasis can signal emotion, intent, or stress long before words convey meaning. The brain processes these cues automatically. Even without conscious awareness, tone influences how we interpret honesty, confidence, or emotional state. It explains why phone conversations, audio messages, or debates can feel so revealing, even when the content is neutral. Being aware of tone sensitivity enhances communication. Modulating voice, pitch, and rhythm can convey confidence, calm, or empathy, while noticing subtle shifts in others provides clues to unspoken feelings or tension. The voice is a mirror of the mind. Tiny changes speak volumes, often revealing truths hidden beneath words. Fact 87. Gratitude rewires the brain. Expressing gratitude isn't just polite, it changes the brain. Regularly acknowledging appreciation strengthens neural pathways associated with positive emotion, reinforcing optimism, resilience, and overall well-being. Even brief acts, thanking someone, journaling positives, or mentally noting blessings, trigger reward centers, releasing dopamine and fostering contentment. Over time, these patterns reshape perception, making the brain more attuned to positive experiences and less reactive to stress. Gratitude also enhances social bonds. Recognizing others' efforts and kindness strengthens connection and encourages reciprocity, creating a feedback loop of positive emotion. The simple act of noticing and appreciating shifts not just mood, it reshapes the way the brain responds to the world. Gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a powerful tool for mental rewiring. Fact 88. People reveal comfort through relaxed breathing. Breathing quietly signals more than health. It reflects emotional state. When people feel at ease, breathing becomes slow, deep, and steady. Conversely, stress or discomfort often triggers rapid, shallow, or uneven breaths. This subtle cue provides insight into comfort, engagement, and safety. In social interactions, noticing breathing patterns helps gauge receptivity or anxiety without words. Athletes, performers, and leaders often use breathing intentionally to project calm and focus. Relaxed breathing isn't just physiological, it communicates trust and ease. Observing and matching it can enhance connection, reduce tension, and create a more harmonious interaction. Breath quietly broadcasts comfort. Paying attention reveals emotional undercurrents invisible to the casual observer. Fact 89. People apologize. More when they feel powerless. Apologies are often about more than acknowledging mistakes. They signal perceived vulnerability. Humans tend to apologize more when they feel powerless, uncertain, or at risk of social disapproval. The brain interprets apology as a tool to regain control, reduce conflict, and restore connection. Even minor gestures of contrition help re-establish balance when someone senses diminished influence or authority. Recognizing the link between apology and perceived power provides insight into dynamics of relationships, negotiation, and social hierarchy. It explains why people sometimes apologize excessively or defer unnecessarily, even when they're not at fault. Apologies are as much about emotion and perception as they are about action. They reveal the underlying state of control, humility, or insecurity. Fact 90. People slow down when they want to be understood. When someone speaks more deliberately, pauses longer, or enunciates clearly, it's often because they want to be understood. Humans instinctively adjust pacing to ensure clarity, anticipating how the listener will process information. The brain recognizes that communication is a shared task. Slower speech gives the listener time to absorb content, notice nuances, and form connections. This conscious or unconscious adjustment reflects care, respect, and a desire for connection. Understanding this cue allows for more empathetic communication. When someone slows down, it's a signal to listen attentively. They're prioritizing understanding over speed or efficiency. Pacing speaks as loudly as words. When people slow down, they're inviting engagement and comprehension, revealing intent behind the message. Fact 91. People give the best advice for problems they have themselves. Ever noticed that someone struggling with a certain issue often offers the most insightful advice on it? That's because humans learn deeply from experience. When the brain has navigated a problem firsthand, it encodes solutions, pitfalls, and strategies more effectively than abstract knowledge alone. Giving advice also reinforces learning. Explaining a solution to someone else strengthens neural pathways, making the insight more vivid and easier to recall. That's why people who've been there often provide guidance that feels practical, relatable, and actionable. This also explains empathy in problem solving. Personal experience allows understanding beyond logic. Intuition, emotion, and context guide the advice. When someone offers insight from their own challenges, it carries a weight that theory alone can't match. Experience shapes wisdom. The brain turns personal struggles into valuable guidance for others, creating lessons that stick far beyond the original situation. Fact 92. People are drawn to confidence more than kindness. It might surprise you, but humans often prioritize confidence over kindness in first impressions. The brain interprets self-assuredness as competence, security, and reliability, signaling that someone can be trusted or followed. Kindness matters, but it can be overlooked if not paired with certainty. Confident behavior, steady posture, clear tone, decisive action signals capability even before actions or words fully prove it. This explains why charismatic leaders or public figures often attract attention and influence quickly. However, confidence without substance can falter. The key is balance. Genuine capability paired with approachability resonates most effectively. People are drawn to those who appear in control of themselves and their environment. Confidence is magnetic. The brain values certainty, making self-assurance a powerful tool in both social and professional interactions. Fact 93. The brain fixates on unfinished tasks. Ever noticed how incomplete chores, emails, or projects keep popping into your mind? That's the Zeigarnik effect in action. The brain fixates on unfinished tasks, nudging you toward completion. Humans evolved this way to ensure important goals weren't forgotten. Incomplete actions trigger cognitive tension, prompting repeated mental attention until resolved. This is why unfinished business distracts us more than completed tasks, even subconsciously. Understanding this can improve productivity and stress management. Breaking work into clear, manageable steps or closing loops intentionally reduces mental strain. The mind craves closure, and unfinished tasks demand it relentlessly. Unfinished business lingers for a reason. The brain's fixation is a survival tool, keeping priorities top of mind until resolution. Fact 94. People remember insults stronger than compliments. Have you ever forgotten a compliment quickly but replayed a slight over and over? Humans are wired to remember negative experiences more intensely than positive ones, a survival mechanism rooted in threat detection. The brain prioritizes insults, criticism, or social slights to avoid future danger. Positive feedback is pleasant, but it doesn't trigger the same alert system. This explains why a single harsh comment can overshadow weeks of praise. Awareness of this bias allows perspective. Recognizing that negativity sticks disproportionately can help temper emotional reactions and foster resilience. It also encourages delivering feedback thoughtfully, understanding its lasting impact. Negative words echo louder than positive ones. The mind is tuned to protect, not flatter, making insults harder to forget than compliments. Fact 95. The brain predicts emotion before logic kicks. In Have You Ever Reacted Emotionally Before Thinking Something Through? That's because the brain prioritizes emotional prediction over rational analysis. The limbic system evaluates threats, rewards, and social cues faster than the prefrontal cortex can process logic. This is why first impressions, gut feelings, and snap judgments feel so compelling. The brain is essentially saying, act fast, decide quickly for survival and social harmony, before logic has a chance to weigh in. Understanding this helps explain impulsive decisions, biases, and intuitive insights. Emotion often drives initial reactions, while rational thought follows to justify, refine, or adjust behavior. The mind feels before it thinks. Emotional prediction guides behavior, shaping decisions and perceptions before reasoning even begins. Fact 96. People hide loneliness behind independence. Have you ever met someone who seems fiercely independent, always self-reliant and private? Often, this independence masks loneliness. Humans are social beings, and feeling alone, even subtly, can prompt a strong display of self-sufficiency. The brain protects the sense of self by presenting competence, control, and autonomy. By appearing independent, people reduce vulnerability and avoid drawing attention to emotional needs. It's not that they don't crave connection, they simply hide it behind action and resilience. Recognizing this pattern helps in relationships. Offering empathy, attentiveness, or simple presence can bridge hidden gaps, even when someone insists they're fine. Independence is impressive, but it doesn't eliminate the human need for connection. Loneliness often wears a mask. Beneath the surface of self-reliance, the brain still seeks acknowledgement, understanding, and companionship. Fact 97. People become quiet. When they don't feel safe, silence can speak volumes. Humans instinctively reduce communication when they feel unsafe, threatened, or uncertain. The brain prioritizes protection over expression, triggering quietness as a defensive response. This isn't just physical danger, it can include social, emotional, or psychological contexts. Someone who normally talks freely may withdraw, pause, or minimize interaction when sensing risk. Observing these shifts provides insight into comfort, trust, and security levels. Awareness of this cue allows more empathetic responses. Creating a safe environment through reassurance, tone, and body language can encourage openness and connection. Silence isn't always refusal, it can be a protective signal. Quietness signals caution. When people hush themselves, the brain is prioritizing safety over conversation. Fact 98. The brain finds purpose. Through connection. Humans thrive on relationships. The brain interprets meaningful connection as a source of purpose, fulfillment, and identity. Work, achievements, or solitary pursuits feel richer when they involve others or contribute to shared goals. Connection releases neurochemicals that reinforce social bonding, satisfaction, and motivation. It's why communities, friendships, and partnerships enhance resilience and happiness. The brain equates engagement with others as both survival and emotional fulfillment. Understanding this explains why people prioritize relationships, mentorship, and collaboration, even when efficiency or personal gain might suggest otherwise. Purpose is rarely solitary. It's relational. Meaning is social. The brain finds purpose not in isolation, but in the shared experience of life with others. Fact 99. People reveal character in small moments. Grand gestures are memorable, but the brain often assesses true character in subtle moments. How someone treats a server, reacts to minor inconvenience, or handles disappointment says more about them than public displays of virtue. Humans are wired to pick up micro-behaviors, tone, and small choices. These glimpses reveal priorities, empathy, integrity, and authenticity. Observing patterns over time paints a richer, more reliable picture than singular actions or statements. Recognizing this encourages mindful behavior and thoughtful evaluation of others. Small actions, often overlooked, carry disproportionate weight in social perception. Character emerges quietly. The brain notices nuance, showing that everyday behavior often speaks louder than words or appearances. Fact 100. Most human behavior comes from fear or love. At the core, human behavior often boils down to two powerful forces: fear and love. Fear drives avoidance, caution, and protection, while love motivates connection, generosity, and growth. The brain evaluates situations primarily through these emotional lenses. Even complex decisions, social dynamics, or cultural behaviors can often be traced back to a desire to avoid pain or to seek belonging, affection, or approval. Awareness of these forces helps explain motives that aren't always obvious on the surface. Recognizing fear and love as fundamental drivers offers insight into actions, reactions, and relationships. Behind nearly every choice lies the push to avoid harm or the pull toward connection. At the heart of humanity, emotion guides behavior. Fear and love shape the mind, quietly directing thoughts, decisions, and interactions.